Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right in your business, showing up, leading, serving, yet underneath it all, you're exhausted and quietly wondering if anyone else feels this way? Today's guest doesn't avoid these conversations. She leads them. I am honored to welcome Shannon Cohen. She is the founder and CEO of Shannon Cohen Incorporated, where she develops emotional intelligence, equity, and wellness experiences for organizations and leaders. She's known for her head and heart approach. Shannon speaks into the lives of leaders, helping high performers sustain impact without losing themselves in the process. She's the creator of the Rockstar Woman movement and an inspirational product brand, and she is the author of It's Normal to Shake as You Soar and Tough Skin, Soft Heart. I consider Shannon a true hope dealer and a change agent. Give yourself the gift of the next 30 minutes with Shannon. Remove all the distractions, pour yourself a cup of tea, and join me in listening to the brilliant and inspiring Shannon Cohen. Welcome to Main Street Success Stories. I'm your host, Jennifer Kok, entrepreneur, business coach, and founder of Next Wave Business Coaching. My first business I opened 2 days before giving birth to my second daughter. But then I grew it for 20 years. I grew it from a local bakery into a national brand and eventually sold it for a profit. I know firsthand how tough the odds can be. Only 1 out of 2 small businesses make it to year 5. That's why I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs change those statistics through coaching, mentoring, and this podcast, where I share real stories of others, their success, their struggle, their mindset shifts, their fears, and lots of wins along the way. Because none of us are alone in this journey of entrepreneurship, and I want to make sure that you have the support you need. My goal is simple: to inspire you, motivate you, and show you there's a path to building a profitable business. So let's dive into the next episode of Main Street Success Stories. Shannon, what a joy and an honor to have you on Main Street Success Stories today. I am so excited to talk with you.
Jennifer, Glee doesn't capture it. I love everything that you're doing and how you are giving people the benefit of your wisdom without the pain. So excited to be here with you in this community today.
Well, thank you so much. So let's go back first. You know, all of us that live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we know who Shannon is. You are an icon. You are I love how you call yourself a hope dealer, a difference maker, a change agent. But before all that, before you started Shannon Cohen Incorporated and started Rockstar Women and the things that we know you publicly for, what were you doing and what led you to this work?
So we were talking about this a little bit backstage, as a little girl, I've always known I've known some things about myself since I was a little girl. And I see those threads still interwoven into who I am and what I do today. And so as a little girl, I always was an encourager. I always was just a natural cheerleader, a natural encourager. I've always had a natural sunny side up disposition. Also, always had a penchant for seeing people who were visibly invisible. So even when I was in friend groups and I fit in, I was always aware and cognizant of who was on the fringe or who maybe was in the room, but they weren't invited to the table. And so, I think all of us, as we are gathering today, we can see threads of who we are still present today that were seeds when we were kids. And so those seeds have germinated in multiple ways. I couldn't go to college to major in, hope and encouragement, but I went, my degrees actually are in public administration and nonprofit management. That's master's in it. I got my undergrad in political science and international relations. So I always knew I wanted to be in a helping profession space, but I didn't know, I thought I would be doing this abroad. And then I realized that the seeds of entrepreneurship were actually seeded by my grandparents. My mom was a divorced mom of 2 and went from being a stay-at-home mom to a working outside of the home mom. And so my grandparents were gap fillers because my biological father was absent. And so my grandparents, in the golden years of their life, decided to open a collision shop on the west side of Detroit. And so my summers were spent being the unpaid intern in their business. And my grandfather was also a pastor. So I saw them use business as a catalyst for social good. I saw them do that in real ways. And so I think that it's beautiful when we start to assess the roots that give us wings.
There's so many things you said in there. First of all, you are the person that everybody wanted as a friend. I mean, what a gift that you were given. And I love how you say your grandparents were the gap fillers because I love seeing
Mhm.
generations pour into each other. And a lot of
Yeah.
times we don't see that enough anymore because people are living in different cities than their families. And what an impact they made on you. I just love how you said you saw how they used entrepreneurship, not
Yeah.
to just service somebody's car, but to service a community, to service somebody's heart. So you were observing all that. And, it's funny because I've been an entrepreneur for 25 plus years. My kids were little when I started. And I will often tell people that one of my biggest legacies and the proudest moments are the things that my kids learned by just watching.
Yes. A
Your
thousand.
grandparents weren't sitting there saying, "Hey, Shannon, watch this. This is how we're going to do this." They were just doing it. And you were, as an unpaid intern, watching and just observing. I love that. So you left college. You had this idea of you were probably going to be global and you were pouring into leaders. Like, where did you start and how did you decide to create your own business?
Being an entrepreneur was never on my bingo card. Like people say, it wasn't on my dance card, bingo card. 9/11 is an impactful year for a lot of us for a variety of reasons. I was packing. I was uh, 23. I was packing to relocate back to Grand Rapids to take a position with the city manager's office because I speak Japanese. I was going to work with one of the sister cities programs with the city and moved. My parents helped me move and then learned the very next day that my job had been rescinded. They didn't
Oh,
know if
no.
they could hire me because they just didn't know what the municipal response to this federal crisis was going to be. And so I think that when all of us, when our backs are against the wall, what do you do? So at the time, I'm thankful. My grandparents taught me the power of saving. So I had saved up enough that I could live on frugally for about 6 to 9 months. And but I was low. I was blue. I didn't know what to do. I'm in this city. My car stopped working. It was just like all the things. And I just decided to start volunteering. I said, I'm going to just start volunteering to get my mind off of myself and started working with the local nonprofit. And they were like, "You're really great. Can we hire you?" And so my career trajectory really was in helping professions, initially with working with young people. I went back to get my master's degree, so started grad school. And that's where the bug for entrepreneurship started. At that time, consulting was this emerging trend, and I realized that there was something calling me to this space of not being tied to one institution, one system, one organization, but being able to take the best of me to various organizations. I'm an 80s kid. I grew up watching the A-Team, the old school BA, Baracus and Face and Hannibal, and they would get in that black band and they'd go into a problem situation, use their gifts to support that community. Once it was resolved, back into the black band, drive off into the sunset. And I'm like, I'm going to be the A-Team of the nonprofit world. Like, that's what I want to do with myself. And so I was getting married by this time. And I was like, I'll have health care with my husband. And I took a leap. That's literally what helped me take the leap. I was 29 by that time. And I was like, yeah, we're going to get married. I'll have health care. Entrepreneurship, here I go. And belly flopped into it. I would not recommend that today, but that was my path.
Yeah, isn't that funny how entrepreneurs tend to do that? We jump in, learn how to swim, hop in the plane, go, and then, okay, we got to learn how to fly this plane. I
Yes.
feel like sometimes we're a little bit wired that way. Well, blessing to all of us that you jumped in and you took that leap of faith and you were able to build what
Mhm.
you've built because you have built an empire, a
Oh, thank
following, a movement. I mean, you are one of the most inspirational people I have ever been able to witness speak, to ever, follow. And I just learned so much from you. And that's not just your sunny side up disposition. It is your fact that you are going into something and looking around and thinking, how can I make this better?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as you started growing, your first focus was focusing on leaders, correct? You were like looking at ways to teach them how to lead with more heart, not just transactional, not just strategy. And so you did that for a little while, I'm guessing. And then what came next? And I guess as you were growing, as you jumped in and learned how to swim, as we're using that analogy here. At what point was there a point where you remember feeling, okay, I'm playing it safe and I can't play it safe anymore. It's time for me to go all in and show people what my business is made of. Do you remember a moment at all throughout your career?
You know what, Jennifer? I think that there are times where what I'm recalling as I hear you pose this question to me, I was 39 by this time, and I won 40 under 40. But that night, I don't remember. I remember being on the stage. I remember accepting the award. But when I was on that stage, all I could think was, I am so tired. And I grew a heart for the ways in which the people that we see leading and loving and serving in transformational ways are often walking wounded. But because they're high performers, nobody notices because they can still get the job done even when they're hurting. And that's who I felt really called to. So when I started writing, I was like, like, is anybody else like voice in the wilderness? Is anybody else feeling this way? Like you can be winning at work and losing in your soul. And I'm like, is it just me? And I started a blog. I was on maternity leave. I started a blog and I was shocked who started following me, mayors of cities, CEOs. And I'm like, wait a minute. This blog grew out of me being transparent and vulnerable. And so I think there was this piece for me that I realized I want to talk about the things we don't talk about. Like, I don't want to talk about the ways in which we're winning if we cannot simultaneously talk about the ways in which we are struggling. Because I think that those false veneers are hurting us. And so that was catalytic for me. And I think as far as like going all in, one of the things I think a lot of times I write to process myself. I write to process the world. I write to process the season of life I'm in and life in leadership. And I remember once I wrote a mantra that you've probably seen, and it was like, believe in her, bet on her, invest in her, root for her, champion her, heal for her. And then it's like, like I am her and she is me and this is us. And I just decided that I would not shoot my ideas down, that every idea that I had was worthy of investment because every day I realized I don clothes, makeup, hair products, face products that started in the mind of somebody else. All
Mm.
of us, if we were just to do an assessment head to toe, how many brands we're wearing, right? Visibly and invisibly. We are wearing things that started in the idea of in the mind of someone else. And so I just decided, like, Shannon, if you're going to invest in the ideas of people you don't know, like, girl, invest in your ideas. Give them a shot. Don't be the one who shoots it out of the sky because you don't know how it's going to come together. And so I believe, I wish that that had been earlier, but that was like probably one of the pivotal truths of my 30s, probably mid to later 30s that I said, I'm going to protect this ability in me. Like I've done this for others. I spent 11 years as a youth pastor. Like I've always been this champion for others, but I think that was also another catalytic moment, writing that mantra and deciding that, when I really did assess, like every day you wear a brand that started in the mind of this brand might not even be here 5 years from now, right? But you believed in it for some reason and you bought it and you invested. So I ended up writing a note to myself that is one of our best-selling stickers, but it says, "You are the first angel investor your dream will ever see." So a lot of the things that we sell as inspirational products, they started in things that I wrote to myself, in that season that I was like, maybe somebody else needs to hear this too.
And you know what? A lot of people need to hear that. And you were really brave for tackling that conversation because I see it all the time with entrepreneurs. I
Mm,
joke about how if you ask an entrepreneur, "Oh, how's business? How's it going?" You see somebody out in the street, they get this like funny and voice and they're like, "Oh, it's great." It's like our peacock feathers have to go up like we've got it all figured out because it's almost this badge of honor we wear that if we build this business by ourselves, if we tell everybody it's great, then everyone's going to think it's great. But if I say to somebody, "Oh, I'm exhausted," then we fear, "Oh, are we going to lose a customer? Oh, what's others, our collaborators going to think of that?" So, what a brave, bold statement you took. But I also, we all know wisdom, hindsight's 2020, right? You
mhm.
probably had to work those 10 years and become the walking wounded in order for you to have this realization and be able to pour into others like you are today. And idea worthy of investment, like mic drop, we could just like, let's just stop right there because entrepreneurs are full of ideas. And sometimes I wonder how many of them are overthinking them or getting imposter
Yeah,
syndrome or stopping themselves because this person took that idea and they're
mhm.
bigger and better and smarter and way ahead of me. We do that to ourselves.
That's
So I
right.
love how, thank you for just sharing that. And I hope listeners walk away with take your ideas, journal about them, make them
Take them serious.
yours.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
so, so brilliant. So, as we're listening to this episode, 2025 is in the rearview mirror. And I know you've spoke to a lot of entrepreneurs as I did. And one thing we can all, I think, say about 2025 is it was just kind of heavy. Business was a little tougher to get. Our
Mhm.
profit margins were dwindling a little bit because of the cost of things. It was hard to find the right staff to fill the seats that we needed in order to scale. We were bombarded with a lot of decisions that were out of our control.
Yes.
What I call external threats. We had no control over a lot of the political, economical, culture, climate that evolved in 2025. And
Yes.
I love how you share that you're calling this kind of a season of inflection. And I've never heard it penned that way. I've never read that. And I would love to just kind of get your deep dive on what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I change is all around us. We've all heard, the adages that say that the only thing that's constant is change. But inflection is something different. To me, inflection is a level of change that leads to transformation where you're not going to be the same after this process of change. And inflection always holds three things to me. If anybody else is trying to figure out if they're in a space of inflection, it always holds possibility, it always holds promise, but it also holds pain because going through a process of necessary endings to new beginnings is not easy. It's hard sometimes to release and let things go, to shed things, to become who we need to become and what we need to evolve into. And so for me in this season of inflection, one of the things that I've been saying and I've been writing about, and you and I've talked about this too, that a lot of times people only want to talk in the victory lap. We talk when we're at the starting line and we talk when we cross that, that iconic where the ribbon is there and your body goes through. Those are the two places where a lot of leadership books are. And there are not a lot of leaderships about the brave, messy middle. And I remember feeling like, can we just start there? Like, don't give me the cue. I have my number and I'm at the starting line warming up and don't give me the victory lap. Let's talk about mile marker 14 and you are exhausted and you don't know what's going to come next and things are cramping up or whatever. Like I wanted to talk there. And so one of the things that I am passionate about in this season of my life is I think great leaders leave clues. And I've been dropping breadcrumbs from this season of inflection that I'm in because I realize, sometimes you grow it, but all the time you are growing you. And we don't talk enough about the intersection, the symbiotic relationship between your growth as a leader, builder, founder, creator, CEO, entrepreneur, and the growth of it. And I've called it, I know you call it also the messy middle. That's part
Mhm.
of where you are the entrepreneur whisperer in that space. But I've been leaning towards calling it the brave middle too, because that's one of the places I think you need to be courageous the most is when you are leading in the dark, including when that's yourself.
And now let's talk about the messy middle a little bit because you're right. That's my favorite place to join an entrepreneur. And I'm joining them more in the messy middle of revenue, profit, their time, their systems, and helping them use data to kind of get them to the next level, the next stage of entrepreneurship. You're joining people in the messy middle of their energy, their mindset, their beliefs, kind of what's next for me. And I feel like one of the things that is probably the hardest for any entrepreneur to do is to shed something
Mhm.
because it's ingrained in us to build more, build more. We're overachievers. That's just who we are. And we have all these ideas and we have this vision. But I have seen it with some of my clients firsthand that when we let go of a few things, whether it's a product or a
Yeah,
service, in the world that I'm working in, they flourish.
that's right.
Profits grow, they attract more customers. And so let's talk about it from a person, a whole being that you are pouring into. You know, do you feel that it's hard for women to shed because we're trying to be everything to everybody?
Do. I think that we don't talk enough about sunsets. We talk about sunrises, but we don't talk about necessary endings and how critical necessary endings are before you can even have new beginnings. There have been seasons in my own life and journey where I remember having a dream once, and this is really was another quantum leap for me in the business. And I kept having this dream, and it was like my hands were closed like this, like my fists were closed. And it was almost like in that dream, like It was like until you release something and open your hands, it was almost like God was like, I can't put anything new in your hands because they're too full. You're
Yeah.
at capacity. And so I think a lot of us, if we want to take quantum leaps, we have to audit and assess what's in my hands. Like you said, what's occupying my time? What are my I have to audit and assess what's not producing and why am I holding on to it? And is it time for me to release it? And does it need to be a sudden release? Is it a gradual release? Because I think that's also something we don't talk about. People are like, I'm letting it go. And it's like, no, you might need to move faster. Like your pace is an impairment. There are some things we need to stop immediately. And then there are things that it might take some time to phase out. And so, yes, I think that becoming a leader, there is actually a book I read called Necessary Endings. The author, I see his face, his name is escaping me, but it was an impactful book. And he talked about working with business owners that were like, if this is not producing, then you need to prune it. Anything that you want to grow requires pruning, whether that's your organization, systems, relationships, yourself. And so it takes intentionality. It takes coaching. Thank you, Jennifer. It takes all of those things to be able to be a person that can bring a sunset so that you can welcome a sunrise. And sometimes I'm so glad that you coach in this area because sometimes we all leaders have leadership lids, knowledge gaps, and we all have blind spots. And so that's the beauty of executive coaching, like you provide, is that sometimes we don't even see our own blind spots. And we need psychologically safe people and advisors that can help us to say, wait a minute, you think that the problem is this, but the problem really is this.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure you have plenty of anecdotal stories of entrepreneurs that you help them to really see the root because they were maybe at the symptom and like, how do I cut this off at the root?
And, that's so key in professional and personal development is getting to the root. And
Mm,
oftentimes, you're right, without someone coming alongside you or someone like yourself
mhm,
pouring into others, it's hard to see that because we're just in the
mhm.
hustle. We're just in the daily. I got to get these things done. I'm a
Yeah.
mom, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner, I'm a community leader. I'm doing all these things and I just have to get this done. I don't have time to sit here and reflect this. And so, have you ever seen or have any thoughts on how someone can kind of see if they're in the messy middle and it's maybe time, this inflection point in their life, whether they're building a business or not?
Yes, I think that seasons give us signs. So there are signs of every season, just like, yeah, I think nature holds so many leadership lessons. We know that even if it's sunny outside, but the leaves change colors and they start to fall, it's these indicators that there's a season shift. We see a thawing. We hear birds returning, especially with us being Michiganders. I realize that you're a global audience and people are positioned differently. But I think one of the things we have to ask ourselves is what season am I in? What season am I in? And then what season is my company in? Because you can be in multiple seasons in different ways. You could be in winter in a relationship, you could be in summer in your business, and you can be in fall in your health. Right. So we have to be able to assess what season am I in and what are the cues and clues that are coming. I know with me and building the Rockstar Woman movement, I remember, I said this to my team, but I looking back, I can see that this was seasonal shift language. And I said to them, what got us here won't get us there.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I think a lot of entrepreneurs, we realize that maybe something that used to work like a charm in one season isn't producing results in this season, or maybe an early system that we used. I think back to my earliest days as an entrepreneur, I used to use this system called Shoeboxed. And I would mail my receipts in this little magic blue envelope, and then they would organize it into a spreadsheet. And as a solopreneur, I was like the Shoeboxed ambassador
Right.
until I realized that season it shifted. I needed to shift into QuickBooks. And so I had to learn a new system because we were entering a new season, accounts payable, new seasons, I used to handwrite checks, then I went into an accounts payable system. So there are just cues where you've outgrown something. It doesn't fit like it used to fit. Right. And then there is that growth edge space of being able to let go of what to be a student and a learner, to step into a place that's unfamiliar.
Yeah. Love it. And, what I love is this holistic approach. It's a holistic approach to building whatever you're building.
That's right.
It's not one lane, it's not one size fits all. There are many layers to us as humans, and we have to be pouring into all of those lanes and all of those things in order to grow. So, Shannon, you spend most of your time pouring into others. That's what you do. So, how do you protect your energy, and how have you learned what you should be saying yes to?
That is such a great question. I think one of the things that I have used as a litmus test is actually my family. I have a small, it's just my husband and my son, which is I'll call us a three-part harmony. But I want to make sure one of the things I often say is don't neglect the people who love you most and best. And that sounds noble, but all of us know entrepreneurs and business owners where that has happened and they look up and it's like, I don't know my kids. Like I'm successful, but I miss so much of their lives. Or that the divorce rate amongst entrepreneurs is 4 times the national average. That's not by mistake. It is very easy to make work life because it's noble and it's good stuff, but it can be all consuming. I'll never forget we had I must have been maybe year 3 or 4, probably yeah, somewhere around year 3 or 4 of the Rockstar Woman movement, and I remember my husband saying to me, "I hate brunch season." And I was just like, whatever horror movie you hear, like, like, I just
Yeah.
was like, "What do you mean you hate brunch season?" He was like, "I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate that you're not here. I hate how exhausted you are. I hate" at that time, I would get sick every day, like, literally for years, I would get sick the day after. October 1st, I would be sick. And
Yeah.
he's like, "I hate it." And it was hard to hear, but I had to hear it and I decided I'm gonna start to make adjustments so that that is not their response. And now they both volunteer at brunch. And so it is using them as a litmus test sometimes to what I'm saying yes and no to is important because I don't want to give them leftovers, right?
Yeah. Oh, good. Good stuff. And, we love to say yes. It's just our nature. And
Yep,
most entrepreneurs are fixers and nurturers, and that's what we love to do. But every yes creates a no for either
that's right.
you or somebody else. And so, I just love how you share that. And you're right. Sometimes we forget the people closest to us really
Mhm,
can take the brunt of what we're trying to build
mhm,
here.
mhm. Yep.
So Shannon, 2026, we are hopeful. We're gonna this year is gonna be so much better than last year. What's 2026 look like for you and your business? And what do you hope what do you want them to feel about this coming year for us?
Such a great question. I want people I think that for those that are builders in whatever stage of entrepreneurship or whether you're on the cusp or you are scaffolding, I think what I want us to do, I think a couple of things are budding for me. I think that one thing that I've been doing a lot of reading around is the power of cooperative economics and the power of collaboration. I think this is going to be a year where your supply chain isn't random, it's relational. I think that people do business with who they know, like, and trust. And so I think that this is a year to build relationships with other builders, other entrepreneurs who are smarter in the spaces of deficiency, or that you can partner and do something in a way that's stronger together. I think of the
Mhm.
quote, individually we are a raindrop, but collectively we are an ocean. So I think that this is going to be a year of braiding resources to reduce overlap. I really think that's going to be something that we're going to see this year. And I also believe that this is a year for protecting, investing in yourself as a builder. I know that often when things get tight financially, one of the things that we're typically tempted to do is to cut out professional development for ourselves. We'll think, I don't have time or I can't. And this is
Right.
the thing no matter what type of business or industry that you're in, people pay you to solve problems. And anybody that's getting paid to solve problems has to stay curious, creative, and cutting edge. And so I think one of the things that we're going to have to do this year is to continue to invest in ourselves, whether that's I take 30 minutes twice a week to make sure that I'm reading a book that's speaking into a space of deficit or a space I'm curious about or I want to grow. I'm investing in executive coaching or conferences for myself, or I'm a part of a leadership, CEO roundtable. I believe that these are going to be catalytic so that we can not just be around, not just for content, but to be able to cross pollinate ideas with other thought partners that can just spark innovation and creativity within us.
Well, I love your vision for 2026 because I always say growing a business is lonely and you just took the
Ooh.
loneliness out of it. So let's not look at each other as competition. Let's look at each other as how can we collaborate, grow together. And I think that's really a creative idea that I want the listeners to think about. If you're growing a business, who can you link arms with this year where you support each other and can help each other grow? That's so powerful. Shannon, thank you so much. You are leaving me very hopeful for what's to come. And I know it's so inspiring to hear you speak. Anytime you speak, it's just gold nuggets. And we are just so honored to have you. Where can people learn more about what you're up to this year and get in touch with you?
Yes, I would say anybody could learn more at shannoncohen.com, just my name, no space or anything like that, but also rockstar-woman.com. If you are a woman that is looking for a community to help you believe in yourself, bet on yourself, and invest in yourself, we love to.
And I've been in that room and it's an amazing room. So thank you so much, Shannon. I will put how to connect with you in the show notes and I wish you the best 2026.
Same to you. Thank you, Jennifer.
If today's episode resonated, it's probably because Shannon put words to something many of us are living, but rarely say out loud. That place where you're still showing up, you're still leading and building, but something feels heavy, unclear, or outgrown. That's the messy middle. It's a season where what got you here, your grit, your hustle, you're doing it all, won't be the thing that gets you to the next wave of your business. And that doesn't mean you failed. It means you're evolving. Growth requires shedding, clarity requires space, and leadership, especially in this season, requires support. If you're listening and thinking, this is me, I know I'm capable of more, but I feel stuck or stretched or a little bit unsure what's to come next, I want you to know you don't have to figure it out alone. That's exactly why I created the Business Accelerator. It's a hybrid program designed to help entrepreneurs move from stuck to building again with smarter strategy, better systems, accountability, and support through the messy middle. If this conversation sparks something in you, I invite you to learn more about this program and see if it's the next right step for you. You'll find the link in the show notes below. Thank you for being here. Please share this episode with someone you know who needs to hear it today. And of course, I would love a 5-star review. And you know what? Thank you for doing the brave work of building and for listening to Main Street Success Stories. I'll see you next time.